Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. The good, honest business chat is at high levels in this episode today, so I am especially glad you hit play on it, because it can be the smallest of things that can make or break us. A compounding effect of the experiences where we don't feel seen, heard, successful, or confident. But when we realize that all those experiences are totally normal, we are far more empowered to crack on with it. Phoebe Netto is who you're going to hear from today. She's a PR professional, and I'll tell you all about her business shortly. She's also brilliantly honest about the sticky moments that sneak up on us and how to get through it, which is a reflection that we get to benefit from, which is just all things chef's kiss. In this episode, you'll hear about the conversations around fear and motivation that we have with ourselves, starting small and starting green, remembering the joy and privilege it is to serve a customer, how to help people understand why you are great at your craft, the impact of self-PR, ignoring a lack of self-confidence so that you can just get out of your own way, regular content versus passionate content, and why you have to make the first move to develop a like-minded entrepreneurial community. So let's get you right into it. With me today is Phoebe Netto, founder of Pure Public Relations, a PR firm that focuses on outcomes, not output, keeping it pure and simple. It's a business that delivers media relations, advocacy, issues management, and communication services, and has a reputation for achieving change, securing excellent media coverage, and an impressive track record for issues management. Two words that do make me feel just a little bit hot under the collar and very important. They really do walk the talk, though. When you land on their website, you'll see a headline stating guaranteed media coverage or we work for free. And they're passionately working to help clients grow, achieve legislative change, protect reputations, and bring attention to businesses of all sizes and structures, which very, very important work that is. With 13 permanent team members plus specialist contractors nationwide and in the UK, Phoebe has been building her PR business for 14 years and practicing what she preaches. You just have to Google her name and hit the news tab to see what I mean. And they have just been awarded bronze in the Golden Target Awards for Best PR Team of the Year. Backed by a belief that I really love, so I'm going to read it verbatim. If you are great at what you do, but only your mum knows about it, you're not going to have as many opportunities to do what you're great at. This is where PR comes in. I just love that. And I can't wait to hear your business building story and insights. Phoebe, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thanks, Kim. Love the podcast. So important that business owners are encouraged.
Oh, absolutely. We all know the statistics. We all happily ignore them. We all happily go through fear every day and just embrace it as a normal state of being. So I'm here for it. And so I loved to see that, likewise, you're supporting businesses at all levels and stages. So important. So I'd love to get a little bit of insight of Phoebe. Now, we met through the wonderful Jen Bishop. So it may or may not be Jen who you channel when I ask you this question. But either way, how would your best friend describe you?
Type A would be one of the things that I use to describe me. And to prove the point that I'm really type A, I actually surveyed a cross-section of people who know me in anticipation of you asking that question. Which I thought was really sad. But I work in PR, so reputation is important. So I asked a few people, and type A was a recurring theme, which the negative of that is that I can overthink. But then when I apply that in a good way, that's a lot of what has driven the skill set that I've got today. But type A, generous and empathetic and very driven to want to do better for myself and help others reach their best as well.
Well, that is, first of all, lovely, but also outstanding that you put it down to a consumer survey. I'm very passionate about audience insights, and I think that is a really great way to approach it, and also shows that you did your research about the show before coming on, which I know is a very important aspect of PR. So absolutely walking the talk. So before you were Pure Public Relations, I know you've been doing this for quite some time now, but before Pure Public Relations of today, who were you? What were you doing?
I've always worked in PR. So before starting Pure, I was working in other PR agencies, both large and small. And I worked with some really brilliant people. And I learned the most from observing some of the really brilliant people that I got to just be in the same room with. I did get frustrated, though, in those agency roles that SMEs and not for profits couldn't access really great quality PR. Particularly, we're looking maybe 20 years ago, there were some outlets, some support for small businesses from a PR perspective, but I saw that they thought that small business equaled small results, and that if you had a small business, surely you'd be satisfied with subpar work or small results. And so that was something that was sort of lingering in the background. And in hindsight, there was a bigger frustration, which was in an agency, it's really difficult to say no to a client. So say no to taking on a client, or say no to something that they've maybe requested for you to do. For instance, if it's a global company, they'll want every country to just roll out what the head office has put out, even if it's not going to be resonating with that local market or good quality work. And because it's a timesheet based model in public relations, it's one, hard to say no, but two, there's no pressure to get results because you're charging for your attempts. And that didn't sit well with me. And so those two frustrations sort of led to me starting my own agency where I could say no in order to say yes to the better things, and open it up to be for businesses and not-for-profits, of all sizes, and making sure that the work actually was results focused, because I couldn't accept that doing work that didn't have a tangible impact. It just didn't sit well with me.
I think about large global businesses and enterprise businesses a lot because I've been gratefully involved in some and worked alongside of some, and just the pace in which they move to get to one decision, and then the inability to think about the execution points, like as your example, you've got something that you need to roll out globally and it works for the US market but doesn't work for the Australian market for whatever reason. Like the inability to look at that and go, oh, okay, like we have to put a little bit more effort in here. Like I empathize, because it must be so hard having to get a re-sign off from 45,000 people in order to progress. But it's just such a frustration with the way in which things move when they get too big. So I can understand that would have been really annoying.
And I understand the tension of needing to balance doing great work that you're really proud of with paying people's salaries. And I feel that tension quite a lot now that I've got a team, and the pressure to pay them every month, and not just them, but I know that they've got families and goals and needs as well. And that weighs heavily on me. So I understand the tension of it being hard to say no to some things, but I see it as saying no so that you can say yes to something better. And so maybe you'll say no to that client request, but you can say, but this would actually be better. Or no, I'm not going to put lipstick on a pig and make this client look fantastic just because we can, because we could if we wanted to. We could work on polishing their reputation and giving them a great image if we wanted to, regardless of what we had to work with. But if I say no to doing that for the wrong causes or the wrong people, it allows us to say yes to doing it for the right ones. And so the ability to do that is some of the why that I have to come back to constantly when you're having those hard days in a business where you just think, when am I going to get to the fun part? And remind me again, why did I say yes to doing this again? I could work for someone else. That's a big part of the motivation, that reminder of that's why you got up and did it again today.
Oh, the dance we do with why am I doing this when it's so hard like that. And just that, we chatted a little bit off air before we hit record about just living with fear and the changing relationship you have as a business owner with fear, which is exactly why the podcast is titled as it is. But that changing relationship where you're like, whatever it is, whether it's, however fear manifests, even if it's just like frustration or unpredictability or, whatever it is, or all of the above, which is most people's daily experience, you just change your relationship with it and find whatever it is that you need to do it again for another day to get to that next space where something feels great. You've, I think tapped into a bit of a feeling there.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, sometimes I am motivated by fear, the fear of, like I said, people's pay, or the fear of disappointing a client. And so needing to do whatever it takes to counteract that. But I find I don't make the best decisions when I'm motivated by fear. So I need to remind myself of the why and choose that as the motivation instead. But it's very much a conversation that I have with myself, more like an argument I have with myself, where I wrestle with that. Hold on, I'm going to talk back to myself. Don't just accept that. You can be motivated by fear very, very easily as a business owner, but there's no one else that's going to tell you to stop. You have to have the conversation with yourself, usually in the shower, the beginning of the day. I'm not leaving the shower till I sort this out.
I do love a business owner staff meeting with self. It happens so often. Thank God for boiling hot showers. Now, you've talked just a little bit there about, that process of getting started through then to kind of today's experience or what's probably come up for you a lot of times along the way, which is making sure that you have the business coming in and the revenue coming in order to pay people. Very important. I talk about finances a lot in this podcast. It's fundamental for all of us. We have to prioritize getting paid, and then prioritizing other people, whole other layer. But take me back to the early doors of your business and getting started and getting revenue through the door, getting services set up. What was that whole experience like for you, getting a little bit of comfort in that income stream?
I started off with very small aspirations. I didn't have a lot of confidence in my abilities, which I really should have done before starting the business. But I just dived in and learnt along the way, the hard way, the usual mistakes like taking in any client because they're a client, saying yes to any kind of work, even if it's not your strongest skill set, all of those sort of mistakes that often are made. I learnt the hard way through a lot of error. And it really was just me for quite some time. And I didn't anticipate it being anything more than that for a long time as well. I was very much motivated by doing good work more than building a business that would allow us to do a lot of good work. I was thinking small, but the clients that I was getting in were mostly word of mouth from my network, personal network and relationships, and even some of those businesses that didn't find agencies accessible, but had hoped to have worked with us, had the opportunity to do that. Then I was a one-man band, and I really was a one-man band. And then I had some juniors and interns, paid interns at the beginning. And when I was pregnant with my first child, I realized this isn't really going to work. I'm going to need a bit more help here. And I got a virtual assistant. But even then, I was really thinking I'll get back to it and it'll just be me with maybe a couple of part-time support staff, but I will be wearing all the hats in the business. And it was like that for quite some time.
Gosh, it never ceases to amaze me how much we have to do on our own as a service-based business. I've been toying around with a statement I saw probably on the socials when I was mid-doom scroll. And it was somebody who said, I would prefer to get 1% of revenue and have 100% of my time, something to that effect. But it was that aspect of building a business whereby you're able to get your time back. And just the reality of the opposite side of that for so many of us getting started is it is 150% of your time in order to even gain enough revenue to come in to be able to claw back 10 or 20% of time from having somebody come on board. What was it like to lead somebody within your own business in that stage to start to pass over things that had been held in your head, perhaps processes that weren't very clear?
Because I'd worked in an agency where you have teams and multiple layers of skill sets and there's a lot of mentoring involved, that part wasn't hard for me. And also I was handing over lower level skilled things, so I didn't have an issue with control. That surfaced when I had a bigger team and had more senior staff. That's when I needed to wrestle with control and adjust my mindset to hand over the things that anyone could do or someone with the skill set that I don't have could do, and move to ideally being in a place where I do only the things that only I can do, which I'm not always in that place, but that's the goal. But at the beginning of a business, at any stage of the business, you need to look at what do I have more of? Do I have more time or more money? And so at the beginning, you've got much more time than money. And then as you grow, that shifts and you have far less time and your time makes a lot of money. And so you need to outsource a lot of things using that money in order for your time to hit its high value. So that has to shift over time. And, working those long hours isn't so hard at the start because it's really energizing, exciting. And because it's just you get a lot of instant gratification. There's no long tail. You put the work in, you see the outcome. You put the change in place, you see the result. Whereas the bigger you get, you actually have to wait a longer time to see a lot of the transformations and the effort result in good outcomes. So you're right, it is a shift over time.
I really just liked the way in which you just described the experience of showing up for clients. I think is actually quite a necessary and positive spin. That feeling of joy to sit down and service a client and the motivation for doing that. I think that's something I don't think I've ever heard anybody just describe it like that. And I don't know, this could be like confirmation bias for me, but like it is such a joy to service a client. But sometimes when you're in a service-based business and then the client comes in and you're like, great, this is fantastic. This is great work and it's going to give me the opportunity to get a little bit of revenue in that's going to make everything feel calm for the next little bit. You can kind of focus on that and then very quickly go, oh, geez, now I actually have quite a lot of work to do to actually deliver on this. And I still have to think about the next client that's coming in and making sure that I'm showing up in LinkedIn if that's your environment, or showing up, on whatever platform it is in which you're getting new clients. But just drilling into that feeling that you can have, like being really happy in the present, being happy servicing a client. That just really stood out for me. Is that a natural tendency for you to just kind of really zero in on the positivity of that?
To an extent, but it's also something that is very deliberate that I've learned to do, to try and bottle that up, because you're going to need to tap into that at times where it feels like a hard slog sometimes. It just really does. And you might struggle with self-doubt or imposter syndrome, or you might have a bad experience, or you might find something more challenging than you expected and you begin to question yourself. All of these moments that happen in a business, and then not to mention the external factors of things like the economy, competition, a lot of things outside of your control. You need to have some good go-to tools that fill your energy cup and give you fuel to keep going. So for a while, I even had an email folder filled with all of the testimonials and results and notes of gratitude from my team or my clients that I would revisit to remind myself of what other people who are really smart, whose opinions were worthy of my attention, high achieving people, what they have said about me. Because you can say a lot of things about yourself and you usually are going to go to the negative if you're tired or having a hard time. So you need to bottle up that source of joy to give you energy at times, because it's not going to be there naturally sometimes.
Oh gosh, it's so true. The feedback file is funny. It's something that, I sort of did once and then I sort of lost control of a little bit and haven't revisited for a while, where those people who make the effort to write something to you that says this work that you did mattered to me, like, gosh, that is such a lifeline. Did you find, though, that given that you had worked in a corporate PR environment, so you were within a business, that you did as an employee, and then the difference into going into your own, I guess, you get a lot of like micro feedback in that corporate environment. You've got performance reviews maybe once a quarter, or you've got, meetings where you can kind of show up and feel like, someone's like, hey, you're really like on fire in that. Well done. Having such a big team around you, get all these little like micro pump ups that make you feel like you're part of something bigger. And then, having to be on your own, that need to have something like that, need to have a folder, like it's so simple, but it has never been more real.
And after a while of being on your own, you start to wonder, was that good work? I think it's good work, but no one's assessed it for me in a while and I've not had anything to compare it to in a while. You need to really get very clear on the why and the results that you're looking for. Otherwise, it's really easy to spiral when you've had 5 things go wrong in a row. You need to be able to step back and know what you're going to turn to instead.
I'm really hung up on this as a realization, or I guess like a little bit of a moment of hilarity, because I think a lot of people would relate to this very moment. Like, I did a body of work for a really fantastic client and setting up their podcast strategy, and they were wonderful throughout the process. And like gave me loads and loads of feedback at the end of our project together. I was like, great, I would really love it if you could write me a testimonial about this work. Da da da. Like, yeah, absolutely. And then it's like crickets. And they've forgotten because they've moved on. And I've reminded a couple of times gently, hey, this would really help me, helps me progress my business, helps me find more great clients like you, da 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 da. And just the realization that, like, if that was in a corporate environment and I had asked my manager for feedback, that person would absolutely do it because they would be terrified that they'd look like a bad manager or it's an obligation for them in order to give feedback. Like, that's just something we have to realize in a service-based business environment, that, like, honestly, that feedback you have to hold on to because it's actually not easy to get and it's not guaranteed even when you do good work. Like, it's just such a funny change in landscape when you're on your own, and it can really show a lot of your neediness comes out.
Yes. I mean, if it's hard to justify doing that for yourself because maybe it feels a little self-centered, look at it as developing a great arsenal of that you can use in a new business conversation. I mean, if you're not able to confidently talk about the results that you achieve or the difference that you or your product or solution makes, then why would somebody else be convinced of that to do business with you? So there's that aspect too, where you've got to have a look at, what am I achieving in my work? People don't understand what makes what you do better than anybody else because they don't understand your craft. What is different about the way you do something compared to a competitor? You can't expect people to either understand or appreciate it. You need to articulate the end result that's different and the experience that's different and why it matters to them. And the great byproduct of being able to do that is that you're telling yourself at the same time that why what you do matters.
If you've been telling yourself that next year, the proverbial next year, is the year that you'll launch your podcast as part of a powerful content strategy to drive connection and impact for your business, let's make 2025 the actual year together. Every great show starts with a seed idea, a conversation you want to have, or a need you want to fulfill for a type of listener. But the shows that connect with an audience and bring you business results are the ones with staying power. They're backed with a strong strategic thinking custom to the specific nuances of the podcast medium, the one you're listening to right now, plus brand and content marketing knowledge. I can deliver this for you. It's me, of course, your host, Kim Curtin, and I can deliver this for you. If you've been connecting with me here on this show for more than a minute, you'll already know how passionate I am about podcasts and that I'm a skilled podcast strategist with over 15 years in media, creating strategic branded content concepts across broadcast and podcast. And I want to help you create a podcast concept that you are excited about and that will deliver for your business. I've opened access to a special one-on-one podcast strategy session with me for the first time ever to refine and stress test your idea, discuss what will work and what to watch out for, and how to measure your success and anything else that you might need to feel confident in this exciting podcast medium. It's 60 minutes, one-to-one, and $199. All you have to come prepared with is a seed idea, no matter how small, and together we'll form this into a show concept that you'll be proud to pursue. Interested? I'll make sure that the link is available for you in the About section of this podcast, or you can head straight to goodsideofthebed.com.au to check it out, or just come and find me on LinkedIn and I'll deliver it directly to your inbox. And I hope to see you there, and I hope to see you creating a podcast you're proud of for your business in 2025. Phoebe, you've segued me beautifully into what seems to have played quite a big role in your business. As I alluded to in the intro, if the listener goes and pops your name, Phoebe Netto, into Google and hits the news tab, your contributions to major trade press, to major publications, the PR that you are developing in market for yourself is substantial and admirable. Like, of course, you're in the business of PR, so you got to get yourself out there too. But there's so much that we can all learn from that. What role has that played for your own business growth? And double-pronged question, how on earth do you make time for it in and around servicing the clients and finding the clients you already have?
around half of our clients come from us doing our own PR or word of mouth. And so that's a good motivation. But it took some time to see that result because that's sometimes the nature of PR. A lot of the growth in my business happened when I got out of my own way and I didn't address my lack of confidence. I just ignored it for a while and said, I'm going to do it anyway. I felt so uncomfortable putting myself out there. Part of being in PR is that you're doing that for your clients, not yourself. And I felt very uncomfortable. And again, type A, I was overthinking everything. And that was an obstacle to me doing anything at all. And it took me really pushing myself and allowing some really smart people to push me as well. And when I got started, had to trust that it's working for my clients, it's going to work for me, and just keep at it and focus on consistency to the point now where it does have an impact. And we either have had a client lead come from our PR or it's helped get them across the line where before they call us, they already feel like they have some connection to us because they may have seen a video that I've been talking in, or they've read some media coverage, or they've seen that we are a good example of the results that they could possibly have. And so they're much easier to get across the line. They're a warmer lead by the time they do contact us. So even if they didn't find out about us through the PR, it helps them in that research phase, or the sales funnel became shorter because we helped move them along quicker through the PR that we're doing. And we like to do it as a way of proving to our clients what it looks like. But I still honestly don't enjoy all of it. Sometimes I would rather not do it, but I really value the consistency and what I learn in the process, the skills it builds in me as a leader, but I also know that it works.
Take me into the nitty gritty a little bit of the skills it develops. So, I'm looking at an opinion piece in Mumbrella, one of my favorite publications, trade media nerd over here. Always read B&T and Mumbrella as soon as it lands into my inbox, and have done for, must be like over a decade now. But in seeing that article that you've written, you've given an opinion about a way in which businesses deprioritize PR for something, I'm just giving a general example. Take me into the nitty-gritty process of finding, that hook, like why you would lean into a certain hook, and then actually writing it. Like, as somebody who may be at risk of overthinking things, and being type A around these, and I share that fear. Is this in isolation everything? Is this going to be taken out of context? Is this going to be all of those things that we ask ourselves? Take me through your process of working through that and how you get to something that you feel happy with.
I will find an angle or a hook or an idea for an opinion piece just as I'm going about my day. So I digest a lot of news. So sometimes it's a response to something that I've seen or a conversation that I've had, or sometimes I'll be asked to write about something, or I'll see a business or a leader do something where I know good PR would have made a very big difference. And so I do find that really enjoyable, and it's not hard for me to come up with the bones of an article for that, the main points. The challenge is actually taking it from my head into something that is compelling and well written. And so I've learned some really good tricks to do that. I use an app called loom.com, Loom, on my computer, which records my screen and it generates a transcript automatically. Sometimes it's easier to just talk it out. And so on my screen, I'll have some reference points like the original story that I'm maybe responding to, and I'll just talk. And that gives me some pointers to start with. I don't have to think about typing it up. Sometimes it's much easier to say it out loud. Sometimes often I will be driving and recording a voice memo on my phone while going to go pick the kids up from school. And it's just so much quicker to do it that way. I might only have 5-10 minutes in the car, but I can get really all the main points down in a quick voice memo, which I then transcribe through another app. And then I will use that to formulate the article. And then that's much quicker. And I do have a bit of a secret weapon that I'm really fortunate to have, which is that I have a team of writers who work with me. And so I've always got the ability to have either them proofread or polish it, or even help me with writing a summary to get me started. So I do have that support there, but a lot of it is striking while the iron is hot and the idea is there, getting the main points down and then formalizing it into an article. But if I'm not really energized by the topic, it's a much harder job to pull it together and have it read really well. So every week I'm making videos on LinkedIn, which are just me holding my iPhone. They are not polished at all. They're not edited in any way. I just do a one take, whatever room I'm in at the time, or even sometimes on a walk, I record it just really unprofessionally on my phone. And it's what's noteworthy in PR this week. The fact that I've got to do that every week, that one I do find sometimes I'm prioritizing consistency over it being something that I'm really passionate about. It's really easy to be passionate about something and write an opinion piece on the spot because it's something you feel energized and enthusiastic about. But having to generate regular content, sometimes you just need to do it even if you don't love it, knowing that if you've got valuable, helpful insights in there, but maybe it's not going to win any awards, it's still important to do that for consistency and for people to have you top of mind constantly. And so those videos, I'll admit, are not always the easiest to do. And because coming up with ideas every week, when you're also coming up with ideas for your clients and running your business and all of the other things, sometimes you just need to get it done. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be good and be consistent.
Look, I've certainly taken a lot out of that personally. I bet the listener has too. I think that, as somebody who creates content from voice every single week, I do 2 episodes a week on this podcast, an interview and a solo. And, I build assets around that. The content creators, friends that I have, like everybody will understand what I'm saying here, like the effort it takes just to create a podcast, and then the promotional assets that support the podcast, the words that you have in captioning when you're sharing it, what you can leverage off. You feel like you're just drowning in content sometimes, and it's like a slog to just be like, what am I talking about now? What am I talking about now? But the act of having something and then just talking it out and then polishing it in reverse, like that's just blown my mind a little bit. I'm working on a piece at the moment. I had a funny interaction with somebody and they mentioned something about the Australian Podcast Awards that rubbed me the wrong way. And I have heard it mentioned multiple times over the last 2 years about things that could be done better and this. And it's rubbing me the wrong way and I've got opinions about it. But I'm nervous about putting it out there because then all of a sudden, I don't want to be, it's a very small industry that we work in. I don't want people to self-identify within the articles that I write, but just to be able to talk it out to Loom and go like, is there something in here? Is there something in here? Or am I just pissed off about something? Can I build this into a bigger piece of content? I just think that changes the relationship with the production of content where you forget about the end goal just for a moment and you're exploring an idea.
Yes. I like to use an app called rev.com, which transcribes it as you speak. You can also just record a voice memo and upload it to a transcription site. But rev.com does it through AI. It's not perfect, but it's very good. And it's very low cost. I also really rate having a group of friends or colleagues that you can run things by. And sometimes I will be nervous that maybe I've tried to push the boundary too far or not sure if something is more my opinion than something that is helpful. And I will run that by people whose opinion I really trust and ask them what they think.
Okay, I like that. It's all about bringing your people in and, whether you're a solopreneur or somebody with a team, bringing people into your circle in a way in which feels safe is definitely a great place to start. It's interesting because I think your industry in particular, PR, from my experience with PR professionals, it's so close. Like every PR professional I've interacted with seems to have a group of friends who are also PR professionals and they support each other. They help each other with email addresses for certain journalists or needs or people at business. They pass along business if there's conflict, things like that. It's very unique in PR. I'm not sure how many other industries do this sort of behavior. What's your thoughts on that in terms of how it supported you as a business? And do you think it could happen in other industries?
I completely agree. And that has been my experience the last 7 years also in PR that there are so many great fellow business owners in PR who are generous, who don't work with ego and are very happy to build relationships. And I think part of that is that people in PR are good at building relationships. But equally, you could be quite threatened as a business owner and see everybody as competition and not want to do that. But that's not been my experience, and it's wonderful. It's not something I tapped into from the start. I very much started off thinking I needed to do this on my own and had the very naive belief that all of the difficulties that I had were unique to me, which they absolutely were not. But this wonderful thing that used to exist of a positive community on Twitter, which is now X and maybe not so positive, but when it started, I met so many wonderful solo entrepreneurs and small business owners who were in different industries, and we were supporting each other. But it's only recently that I've been able to tap into that within my own industry, and it's so life-giving and encouraging and just very helpful to have that to go to. But I don't think it needs to be within your own industry every time. A lot of the support that I look for as a business owner is unique to being a business owner of any kind. And so I would suggest that people make the first move in forming those relationships of people who you either aspire to or you feel like are your peers, people who aren't going to be not able to relate to your stage of business or the difficulty or your aspirations, and make connections with them until you find ones that you can trust enough to pick up the phone sometimes and say, this has just happened and it's tough. Can we talk about it for a minute? And know that they're not going to just say they're there. They're the kind of person that you've given permission to tell you to pull your socks up or to suggest, you know what? This wouldn't have happened if you didn't do this, or if you did do this. This is a great learning opportunity for you. That's who I want in my corner. I want people that are comfortable to say the hard things to me and who I respect enough to value their input as well. So that's a limited number of people. There are a lot of people with opinions, but not all of them are helpful and not all of them are useful. But if it's somebody who I respect because of their track record or their approach to life, then I want to be able to have them tell me the hard things. And so I would suggest, no matter what stage of business anyone's in, that they seek those relationships out, that they are willing to do that for someone else and be generous in that way. But it's someone that they can have that be a reciprocal relationship with, because it will just speed up how you can move through difficult times, and it will also speed up your growth, and it will help keep you grounded and sane. That's really important because there's just so many reasons why that would be challenging at times as a business owner.
Oh, holding on to that level of sanity can definitely be a challenge, particularly when many business owners, I think, will go to disassociation more than sitting in the discomfort of it all. I would put myself in that pile. You have a difficult meeting, you have a difficult conversation, you pick up the phone, you have a little TikTok time, or you have a little Instagram scrolling time, and you're just like, no, we just forget that just happened. Let's just move on. Yep, disassociate. And then you see a piece of content about adorable old couple and you're in tears and you don't know why.
Yes. Or you say, I will just work harder. I'm just going to work really, really hard, distract myself with busyness.
Oh, yeah.
And then you switch into task mode rather than strategic mode until, like you just said, you find yourself in tears about something else and realize I didn't actually process that well or at all. And I can't move past this point unless I take a moment and do that.
Absolutely. I think you have tapped into something else there that's really powerful, which is the act of service in the times where business is challenging us. I saw a piece from Simon Sinek recently, talked about an experience of talking to a friend who was going through a hard time. They had a meeting scheduled every week and they would, she was just leaning on him and they would work through her problems. They'd work through and she'd get better for a couple of days and it would regress, get better for a couple of days and regress. And he inadvertently tested on her an experiment where he said, do you know what? I'm actually going through a hard time now too. Can we spend half the session talking about me and then half about you? And very quickly that became a session all about him. And very quickly the person in which came with the original problem started to grow and started to change, and the problem started to shift. And, that act of service then, to when you're going through something and it's overwhelming and you don't see how you're going to get your way through it, to be able to help someone else and be of service in that moment can actually, as if you need another reason to help people, but this is one, it can actually get you out of the pickle that you find yourself in by being of service to somebody else. And that just really stayed with me as a lesson.
That's really powerful. And I think part of that, the reason for that is because it allows you to step back and sort of sit above the situation, which is always a much better vantage point than being in the weeds of something. And if you're able to take a step back and look at it almost as though you were a third party looking at the situation, you're able to see solutions, or at least have better perspective of, this is not the end, this is not everything, or this is not who you are, this is not your identity, or whatever that change shift in mindset needs to be. When you're helping someone else, you're sort of less focused on yourself and the details of the problem. And that's so powerful. I'm going to remember that.
It's these funny things we pick up along the way. It is a bigger, it all adds up to a bigger picture of the experience of being in business, which is such a challenging one in so many ways, shapes and forms. It's why we're here talking about it. But it's also why we show up for ourselves all of the time. So thinking back to the Phoebe who decided to step out and do her own thing, and, thinking about many of the lessons that have come through that 14-year period, and I'm sure all of the lessons that are to come over the next 14 years too, because is there ever a week where we don't have 75,000 lessons about growth in this gig? But thinking back to that Phoebe who was, getting started and getting traction, what would you tell her?
Believe what the smart people around you are saying more than what you tell yourself. So many of the good opportunities that I've taken were because the people around me saw something in myself that I didn't see, or believed better things of my ability than what I originally believed. And so many of the stepping stones that I can look at, my first board position, the first time I would take on a certain type of client, the first time I would do a media interview, any of these moments where I previously would never have even imagined myself being in, it was because someone else saw something that I didn't. And I felt the fear and did it anyway, which builds confidence. I didn't wait for the confidence to come. I would do the task, have some self-reflection about what I did do well, and then that would give me confidence. But trusting that if someone really smart around me believes something better of me, that I should listen to that instead.
That's really wonderful. And I think that is definitely something we could take away. I've just pitched myself for a board position very loosely. It is in process. I just was like, hey, can I get in on this? Are you looking? Can I be part of a process? I will be tapping you on the shoulder to say, Phoebe, help if that goes anywhere. And I don't know what I'm doing, because if it comes off, I will be fearing all of the fears again, all over again, as I do every day. So thank you.
The secret is that a lot of the people in the room don't know what they're doing, but maybe you're the only one with some self-awareness, which actually makes you better qualified than them.
I like that. That's good to know. It's good to know. If anyone wants me on their board, tap me in. I will bring the self-awareness. You can always count on that. Phoebe, I say this to every guest because I really mean it, and I mean it to the listener as well. When you share the inside experience of building a business, no matter what phase is that, whether it is 14 years down the line, consistent client work, consistent PR coverage, strong sensibility in what it is that you're doing and what you're building, or if you're in a seed stage where you're just like trying to build a product and you're finding manufacturers and building a brand, like no matter what phase it is, sharing the inside of what's going on in that process of building a business is such a gift to give to another person, because being the person in that moment, no matter what that moment is, sucks when you do it alone and when you don't have the perspective of what it looks like for a million other people to find yourself in it. So I always say how much of a gift it is to hear your story. And so I do thank you sincerely for sharing it with me. As a return of favor, to you in that. What can we do for you? How can we support you? What action could we take that would help you feel great in the next phase of your business?
Thank you. Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I do hope that the content I'm putting in there is helpful for other people. And I do get such a kick out of knowing that people are able to see that and find it something that they can apply to their business. So if people want to find me on there and engage with the content, I'd love more people to be able to see it, not for an ego boost, because it won't do that for me. It won't make a difference to how I feel about myself. I've learnt the hard way, just because I would love to have more people engaging with it and be able to see the value in it.
One of these days, just one of these days, LinkedIn's going to be on my phone and having a conversation with me, being like, can you please be our ambassador? Or can we please pay you money to create content for us? Or can we something? Because I'm obsessed with that medium. I am so glad you brought it up. I talk about it almost every episode. But yes, listener, if you're not already building an awareness of LinkedIn and how it can work for you and ignoring all of the people that say it's just for corporate lunatics, ignore that, get on there, get around it, or find Phoebe and connect and see some of the cool stuff that can come out of that platform, because it is killer. And I think it's fantastic, certainly for service-based businesses, but not just service-based businesses. Product, honestly, it's just got so much value there if you can find it and have a little bit of patience with setting it up. So yes, I will make sure that the link is in the show notes for your LinkedIn profile. And so the listener can just look down at their phone, scroll through, find it, connect straight away, all of the good stuff. So thank you again, Phoebe, for sharing your story with me today. And we will absolutely be getting around you on that platform.
Thank you, Kim. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.